Okay, so we've been talking about how the free agency class this offseason is pretty underwhelming, at least when it comes to potential options for the Bulls and using their available cap space. When you look at the caliber of players who are going to be unrestricted free agents, yeah, LeBron is there, but he doesn't make sense for the Bulls, nor would he want to come to a rebuilding team in what is most likely going to be his final season in the league. Austin Reeves, great player, but I don't see the Bulls shelling out a lot of money for him as he doesn't really fit what they're trying to do in building out this foundation. Hachimura, it's interesting actually, all these guys are on the Lakers. Norman Powell, Andrew Wiggins, Mitchell Robinson, yes, there are some players to be had, but these aren't big names or even the types of players you spend big money on to consume a good portion of your available cap space. Now, of course, there are a handful of restricted free agents that I think would be viable options for the Bulls, not only because they're younger players that fit the Bulls timeline, but players that fit some needs on the roster, like Peyton Watson, Tari Eason, again, maybe Jalen Duren if the Pistons balk and mess up contract negotiations with him. But at the end of the day, all of those guys are restricted free agents, and their current team will have the ability to match any offer sheet the Bulls give them, and it's tough to say whether or not the Bulls could offer something substantial enough that it would make the team unwilling to match it. And at that point, if it then becomes too much, you have to wonder if the Bulls are overpaying for one of these restricted free agents just because they have the cap space to do so. But while we've talked about all of these potential free agents before, how they would fit with the Bulls, how much it would cost to acquire them, and believe me, I'm sure some of those guys will be players the Bulls will have their eye on, the free agency class might have just gotten a little more interesting after the Oklahoma City Thunder fell to the Spurs in 7 games in the Western Conference Finals over the weekend. While it might seem like a stretch, the OKC Thunder blowing that series after they were the clear title favorites going into the season might have been the perfect scenario for the Bulls that could lead to some interesting opportunities for them to take advantage of this offseason. Of course, I'm sure you're asking, how could the Thunder losing be of any benefit to the Bulls? Well, I'll explain why in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, the Thunder losing, when I think most people expected they would go back-to-back this year, especially with the kind of start they had to the season, was disappointing to say the least. And like any team that ends their season in disappointing fashion, it usually leads to some shakeups on their roster to ensure it doesn't happen again and to ensure they fix the weaknesses or holes on their team. And the challenge the Thunder have right now is that they are becoming a very expensive team, which isn't a problem if you're winning titles. No one cares how much you're spending, how big your tax bill is when you're hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy, although maybe if it's the Reinsdorfs, they probably would still care how big their tax bill is, even if they are winning multiple titles. I kid, I'm not going to throw shade at the Reinsdorfs right now since they said they were going to start spending more seriously. But back to the Thunder. As of right now, they've got $250 million in contracts on their books next season alone, which is well above the second apron. This is in large part because Jalen Williams and Chet's new max contract extensions go into effect next season, where they're each going to be making $41.5 million, along with Shea's $40.8 million contract, which will go up to $60 million when his newest contract extension kicks in the following season. That said, the Thunder, they do have some options. Interesting choices they'll need to be making this season because they do have 2 team options for this upcoming year. A team option for $28.5 million for Isaiah Hartenstein and an $18.2 million team option for the final year of Lou Dort's contract. Now, I've talked about both of these guys on some of my prior free agency videos, but it was always with the assumption of, well, it's highly unlikely the Thunder would let these guys walk. They're either going to pick up these team options or decline them and sign them to longer-term deals. But that was always with the assumption of, well, yeah, the Thunder are probably going to win the championship, so why would they break up a core that has played so incredibly well together? But after losing in the conference finals and seeing how they're going to have to go up against Wemby for the foreseeable future to even get out of the West, that decision to retain either of those guys becomes a little more difficult to justify. Now, of course, the biggest thing everyone is talking about now, especially after he had such a disappointing series, especially a disappointing Game 7, is that the Thunder should finally use all the draft capital they have that's been stored up for all these years and make a trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Trade Chet Holmgren and picks. Bring in the big guns to take on Victor Wembanyama. Bring in a guy who isn't going to crumble and fold when they need more offensive firepower in a Game 7 and get right back to the finals. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. I think it would be a smart move for both teams, quite frankly. It would make the Thunder better for the short to medium term, while a trade like that would probably be better than anything else the Bucks would get to kickstart a rebuild with a young player that was just selected third-team All-NBA and first-team All-Defense to go along with a bunch of picks. It might just work. But even with a trade like that, where you're exchanging Chet's salary for Giannis's, it still puts the Thunder in the same situation from a cap sheet perspective. They're going to have to shed some salary. And that's where the Bulls come in, because either the Thunder decline the options of Isaiah Hartenstein or Dort to make them unrestricted free agents, or they execute sign-in trades where the Thunder would take on shorter-term contracts coming from the Bulls, or maybe the Bulls can even throw them a couple second-round picks so the Thunder don't feel like they're losing Dort and Hartenstein for nothing in free agency. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can I say that a guy like Reeves shouldn't be someone the Bulls pursue because he doesn't fit their rebuilding timeline, but a guy like Dort or Hartenstein would? Well, a few differences. One, Reeves is going to command way more money, like a lot more money, probably close to the max, which the Bulls are in no business to be handing out large contracts to fringe all-stars, if you want to even call them that. Players that are going to want the ball in their hands and are going to take away opportunities from young guys. Dort and Hartenstein are role players. They're not going to need the ball in their hands. They're not going to need a bunch of touches. They're role players that would fit a need on this Bulls roster. Hartenstein, as a more veteran big man starting level center, assuming the Bulls don't draft a starting center, that is going to crash the boards, get you second chance points off misses, is a high level offensive rebounder, great finisher around the basket, strong screen setter, brings a level of physicality the Bulls absolutely need. And then when it comes to Lu Dort, I think he's one of the more underappreciated players in the NBA. Didn't have a great season this past year, didn't shoot the ball especially well from deep, but last season he was first team all defense, shot 41% from three on pretty high volume. He's the definition of a 3-and-D player that is so highly coveted in this league. Can defend in the point of attack, but also has great lateral quickness to be able to guard inside the paint. And again, another very physical player that is going to give you hustle and effort on every play. Now, I know the Bulls can't sign both of these guys. Well, I suppose they could. They'll have enough cap space to do so. But if the Thunder do indeed look to move on from both of these guys, I think the Bulls would be remiss to not at least try and acquire one of them. My preference would be Dort, given he's a little bit younger, brings a strong defensive mindset that the Bulls definitely need. Now, what would either of these guys cost on the open market if they hit unrestricted free agency? I honestly don't know, but the advantage the Bulls have is they're one of the few teams with cap space this summer. Yes, the Lakers have cap space, but that assumes they don't re-sign Reeves, Hachimura, or even LeBron, who I guess is still expecting a max contract, which is crazy. The biggest team that they're going to be competing against for free agents anyway, who want more than the mid-level exception, is the Brooklyn Nets. That's who they would have to beat out. Now, the other player on the Thunder that's interesting is Cason Wallace. I don't think the Thunder would let go of Wallace, not yet anyway, because he is going into the final year of his rookie deal, but he is extension eligible this offseason. And if the Thunder are looking to get ahead of things and knowing they've got all these rookie contracts, future picks that are going to turn into rookie contracts, including that 12th and 17th pick, are they going to want to have more cost-controlled assets coming from those picks? Say, rather than signing Wallace to a big long-term extension where they're already pushing the second apron? Maybe. But if there is any doubt, you'd have to think that they would look to trade Wallace and extract as much value as they can before he hits restricted free agency next summer. And that would be an enticing option for the Bulls. A young player, only 22, former number 10 overall pick, another strong defensive player, second team all defense this year, plays his ass off, plays his role well, knows where he needs to be, elite perimeter defender, and who knows, maybe on a younger rebuilding team, he gets more opportunities to showcase his upside. Again, I don't think the Thunder would likely do this, but something to monitor nonetheless. And then, of course, what are the Thunder going to do with all their picks? They have more picks in the next couple of years than they have roster spots to be able to bring in some of these rookies. Is there an opportunity for the Bulls to trade up from 15 to get the 12th pick? Would the Thunder relinquish some of their future picks for some ready now players? Not that the Bulls really have that. We know the Thunder aren't going to trade to get Giddey back. I have seen a lot of people speculate. I shouldn't even say speculate. There's actually been reports come out that, hey, the Thunder are aggressively trying to trade up to get into the top 4 to either take Boozer or Wilson. And I've seen some say, well, hey, the Bulls should listen to these offers. There's always a price, right? I'm sorry, but there should be virtually no circumstance in which the Bulls entertain trading out of the 4th pick, even if the Thunder offer the 12th, 17th, a couple of future first-round picks. I mean, the value of having the 4th pick in this draft, where the top 4 players are all projected to be future stars, simply put, does not equate to the value of all those picks from the Thunder, especially when you consider the fact that if you made that trade, you would be helping the Thunder to get even better, making their future picks, the ones that they would owe you, even less valuable. You're not going to have a chance at getting a high talent like this for a long time. This type of opportunity isn't going to come around very often, and unless the Thunder are offering you SGA, which they would never do, it's simply not worth it for the Bulls to even think about trading down from the number 4 pick. None. The Bulls got lucky in the lottery. Take that pick and run with it. Don't try and get cute and see if you can parlay it into future assets that aren't going to amount to the same level of talent you would get in this draft. Anyway, my point in all this is the Thunder losing, and we all kind of expected they would just repeat as champions, could present more opportunities for the Bulls that maybe otherwise wouldn't have been there if they had gone on to win the title. Yeah, it might not amount to anything, and maybe OKC just runs it back, but my guess is there are going to be changes, and the Bulls should be keeping an eye out for a potential shakeup of this roster. I would love to hear what you guys think, though. You let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.